3 o'clock on this Monday afternoon. Welcome aboard the Postgame Show alongside Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Hope you had a nice weekend. Glad we got some rain. As Terry Ford likes to say, what, you got some crops out back? And I was like, no, but I don't really like paying the city when I have to water my grass. Although it's ironic. I had my sprinklers running for probably a combined 4 hours over the weekend, and then last night it rained real good. But you know what? That's a double dose. So it's all good.
They got double watered.
Yeah. So everything's fine.
They better not be thirsty anymore.
Yeah, put some smoked drumsticks and wings on the grill. Actually, I put them on the grill and then smoked them for about 4 hours the other day. Quite tasty, so that was nice. Had a little leftovers yesterday.
Now you're talking.
Watched a lot of baseball, trying to follow what's going on here. I will tell you that in the last 2 hours, I have had multiple conversations about the South Carolina job. And I will tell you that we seem to be no closer to. And I laugh through the consternation. I think we are closer. Look, I've been told that there is from one candidate very heavy interest outside of the current interim coach. And that there could be more. I don't know. I don't know right now. Is there any kind of surprise that has happened? Anything that could potentially delay this? Has someone emerged late in the process, perhaps? If you put out enough feelers to where they might say, you know what, I do want to talk with Ray Tanner about that job. Again, it's hard to say, but I did figure by now, a week plus after the firing, and let's face it, y'all, when Coach Tanner fired Mark Kingston last Monday morning, as we had a couple of guests say last week, it isn't like Ray got up. I think it was Jack Veltri that said it. Like, Ray didn't wake up Monday morning and go, oh, you know what? I think I am going to make this move. You knew this was coming without certain benchmarks being hit. So, the thing I think that it's interesting, there's a lot of people who just want to go ahead and have it done. There's a lot of people who are more than happy to wait. And I still think, again, that silent majority has enough trust in Ray Tanner to do the right thing. But with the caveat being that you can't go roll the dice again. And I understand why there are so many people who really like Monty Lee a lot and still see it as a roll of the dice relative to someone who has been to Omaha or has been to multiple supers. You look at a guy like Chris Pollard, who's been to a couple of supers and won a couple of ACC tournaments. You look at Cliff Godwin, and do you keep going back to Cliff Godwin? Now, this is just me talking, okay? But I feel like there's some kind of kinship, and we've talked about what it would be with Ray and Cliff, that there's a lot that Ray might see as someone who's about 20 years older than Cliff. Like, I used to be that guy. And is that the guy that you really want? And can I know Cliff doesn't want to leave, but what does it take to get him here? Mm-hmm. I think he's making about $600,000. You and I talked about it. You could give him a 50% raise and still not have to pay him $1 million. And you could put some big incentives in there. But does he want the job? I'm going to, look, I don't know how. I feel like if this thing drags more than a couple of days from today, that there's really some type of candidate that we don't know about that may still be working.
That's a theory.
Yeah, that's just me, y'all. I don't want anybody to go, oh, they said on 107.5 that one of the candidates is still working. I do not know that. Again, this is part of what we do. We talk. I mean, some of the things I've found out that are factual, and some of the things, we speculate, because that's what happens when this is being held so close to the vest. But it's pretty clear from some that there's still a lot of angst about why this hasn't gotten done yet. So we'll certainly do our very, very, very best to let you know what's going on. Speaking of coaching searches, if you didn't hear, as we get into a few things, and we'll come back around to Carolina baseball, I promise. Dan Hurley is going to stay at the University of Connecticut. He has turned down a $70 million package to become the head coach of the LA Lakers. I don't think this says as much about the LA Lakers, and it says more about the Hurleys just wanting to be Northeastern folk and continue to try and make Connecticut, into a Duke, a North Carolina, a Kentucky, which I think Dan Hurley is well on his way to accomplishing. I think in some ways Connecticut is it's not already there from a generational / historical perspective. But in terms of the current generation, Connecticut is as good as any of them. So now does he just want to solidify that? Or do you think somewhere in his 51-year-old mind, Elijah, there is still an itch to be scratched at the next level? It's just not that much of a itch right now.
Well, he's got it made right now. And that's the thing about the Laker job is as prestigious as it is, because it is the most prestigious job in the sport of basketball, it's a really tough gig to coach LeBron James because you will get blamed for shortcomings of the team. They're in a tough spot with the salary cap because LeBron's making a lot of money and because Anthony Davis requires a lot of money. It's going to be really hard with the whole second apron stuff, which is just an absolute, chore to try to figure out exactly how it works. It is very confusing, and he would have to, he wouldn't be the GM making the decisions, but he's the one coaching the players where it's going to be hard to build that roster. But I think what this does say with Dan Hurley is that coaching in college isn't as dead as some would like for you to believe.
Right.
Because we had a tweet last week. We did not.
I know what you're referencing.
But your Mike Greenberg's producer had the tweet where he said, this is a sad state of affairs for college athletics. Is it? Yeah. Is it? Yeah. Because you just were able to keep a coach who got an offer, a very lucrative offer, from the Los Angeles Lakers. College athletics isn't dead, folks.
No.
I think this is one thing. Anytime you see somebody say, college athletics is dead, after everything that we see, it absolutely is not. It's as lucrative and it is as enticing as it has ever been. And this really is just a prime example of if you win at the college level, they can still treat you well enough to keep you.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And you mentioned as lucrative as, maybe the most lucrative it's ever been, right?
Yeah, certainly. And it's only getting more lucrative with each passing TV contract they get.
Yeah, look at a conference like the SEC, which, a few years back seemed like it just wanted to pay, whoever other than Kentucky and maybe Arkansas, even Billy Donovan, when he got to UF, was an up-and-comer. Mm-hmm. And Mike Slibe kind of said, hey, listen, we're getting left out of the tournament. You might want to think about it. And all of a sudden here, the Southeastern Conference has emerged as a premier conference. But why? Because it is luring top-level coaching talent with big salaries, big guarantees, a lot of protection. And in the case of most of the schools around the league, a lot of built-in behind-the-scenes support to make it all better. Especially to further your point, we look at football and basketball at the high college levels for both and the professional level. The markets are the same in terms of what guys make. Now, again, the highest paid NBA or NFL guys make more. Bill Belichick, who's now retired, of course, but, Jim Harbaugh, Pete Carroll. There's others, but y'all get the point I'm making. McVay makes a lot of money. Mike Tomlin just signed a 3-year extension.
A big one.
But Kirby Smart and Dabo Swinney and Brian Kelly, these are all now 8-figure coaches in college football. College basketball has a couple, right? Mm-hmm. Or at least close. I don't know if are there any 8-figure basketball coaches yet at the collegiate? Or Bill Self is right on the cusp.
I think Bill Self's there.
He's right on the cusp if he's not already at the 10 million mark. But Coach Cal, Dan Hurley is now going to be living in their neighborhood financially. And that's what Connecticut's going to need to do. I don't know how much of this was a ploy. But the point, to go back to the Mike Greenberg producer guys, wait a minute. This is their profession. So why is it a sad commentary on college if they want to further their profession? And I was thinking about some football guys. You and I were talking about this last week, but, in no particular order, in the last 50 years or so, Again, Jim Harbaugh a couple of times. Tom Coughlin was a good college coach. He went on to win the Super Bowl. Pete Carroll's won the Super Bowl. Jimmy Johnson won 2 Super Bowls. Rich Brooks was a really good coach at the next level with the Rams. Didn't win a Super Bowl. Bobby Ross got the Chargers to a Super Bowl. Coach John McKay, after all those years at Southern Cal, started the Tampa Bay Bucks and ultimately got them a few years later to at least be a playoff team. And I'm forgetting some names, I'm sure. Those are just some of the premier ones. I don't really count Barry Switzer. Sorry, Coach.
He had a pretty good squad to go coach.
You inherit, again, you just need Barry Switzer, like, the little Indy, I forget what the Tomorrowland Speedway at Disney World, at Magic Kingdom, like, it's on that track, but you feel like you're, quote, driving the car. That's basically Barry Switzer with the Cowboys. Like, all you got to do is not wreck this thing. And here's the catch. You can't wreck.
It's wreck-proof. This is a totally crash-proof.
It's literally vehicle. A wreck-proof ride. You can't wreck the car, Barry.
It's like the bumpers in bowling.
But we want you to gutter ball. Yeah, we want you to believe that you've done this. But the Cowboys were running themselves at that point in time. Again, as I've said before, Barry Switzer will always be most known for taking a gun to the airport. By accident, he said.
Sure.
That's what he'll most be known for. It's like, you can't take your gun to the airport, Coach. That's not allowed.
Yep, going to the airport, wallet, keys, and yes.
And my sidearm.
Yeah.
So, anyway, Dan Hurley is going to hang around. We are keeping our eyes on what's going on with Carolina baseball. I can't tell you something's going to happen. It feels like with a couple of things I've gotten today that, like, maybe we find something out during this show or this goes on for a few more days. That's what it feels like. I have no idea. I don't know. So like the rest of you, we wait. We reach out as best we possibly can, and otherwise we wait. I do want to come back on the other side. 2 umpiring controversies at Doug Kingsmore Stadium yesterday. I don't know if they really had an impact on who won and who lost. That may depend on one's point of view. We'll get into that and set you up for what's going on around the College World Series. So we got a lot to get to on today's program. 803-404-6100. This is the Postgame Show. Since 1936, Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union has been helping their members save money with banking services. How, you might ask, do they save money? Well, here's how. You see, they're a not-for-profit institution. Nothing wrong with making a profit. We all like to make profit. This is a free market society after all. But with credit unions, they return their earnings back to members as lower rates and fewer fees. So your checking account, those fees, those service fees, savings account, credit card interest, even things like closing costs for an equity line or a mortgage, all lower with Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. So you got to have your banking, and you want to save money, right? They return it to the members, like I said. My wife and I are members of Palmetto Citizens. We love what they've done for us over the years, and we think you will too. Join us. They got 14 locations all across the Midlands, and you can learn everything that they do at palmettocitizens.org. Check them out. Achieve your potential. 18 minutes after 3 o'clock on this Monday afternoon. Welcome back into the postgame show. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell with you. We all anxiously await South Carolina's next baseball coach. We also anxiously await the final participant of the College World Series. That will be known around 10 o'clock tonight. Tonight at 7 over at Foley Field, NC State and Georgia.
Really bummed out we only have one Game 3 on a Monday. We're really hoping we get some day baseball action. It would be awesome.
I don't disagree. Did we only have one other Game 3, just the Tennessee one?
Tennessee, Evansville, and Georgia and NC State are our only Game 3s.
Kentucky, that was a good game last night.
Awesome game.
Oregon pitching at A&M, not so much.
But the uniforms, though.
Yeah.
The green uniforms last night,
Yeah.
those were sexy.
Yeah.
That was the only sexy thing about Oregon's performance, though.
I'm sure it's better in person, but at both A&M and Kentucky, the lighting in the ballpark for the purposes of television, not strong.
Yeah, Kentucky looked dark.
Yeah.
It just looked darker. And I don't know if that's just an effect of that artificial turf and the jerseys.
I don't know.
But it didn't look. I was fine with A&M's, but Kentucky, I agree. It felt like it was a little darker at the stadium.
Clemson lost in 13 last night.
Thriller. Absolute thriller.
It was, and Clemson fans aren't super happy with some of the things that happened last night. I get it. Clemson lost because of baseball. Clemson didn't lose because of any. None of these umpiring decisions were like, the kind. I mean, look, you can certainly argue with the, with the ejection early, but listen. For one thing, I don't know what the just excuse me here, okay? I don't know what the hell Jack Leggett was thinking. A, you're not the head coach anymore, and you're not an assistant coach anymore. You're some type of advisor. And it's something where apparently you can wear a uniform. But it's not even a real uniform because you're not a real coach. Why on God's green earth did you come out of the dugout? Because you can't do that, period. There's no gray area. You're not a coach.
It was strange.
It was surreal, man. I was like, what is he doing? What is he? I mean, he was like, I don't know. And then Eric Bakich a few minutes later is like basically trying to stir up the crowd to yell at the umpires. And Eric Bakich wasn't leaving. Now listen, the kid that hit the homer, Alden Mathis. If y'all haven't seen it, it was what? It was 9-all. No,
9. Yeah,
it was 9-all. It was 9-all.
13th inning.
Top 13. Clemson was the technical visitor in yesterday's game. And top 13, tied at 9, and Alden Mathis hits a shot, and he didn't, do a bat flip. He basically did a bat spike.
It was a Gronk spike, basically.
And so when he comes back around, the umps get together, and because there had already been an unsportsmanlike warning issued to both teams, was this technically a violation of that? Did it rise to an ejectionable offense? And they ultimately deemed that it did.
Which is super lame.
I don't disagree. In the heat of the moment, in a game like that, where you'd already had one kid thrown out for, again, doing something that you can't do, and we'll come back around to that, you, the players, have to know. But at the same time, and I don't know, the umps say they didn't get together to throw him out. They say they wanted to talk about it. So I feel like a couple of them maybe didn't want to throw him out. But look.
Which should be enough, yeah.
But I see both sides here. In the college game, those kinds of things are going to be more quickly judged to be unsportsmanlike than, the Joey Bautista bat flip of a couple of years ago with the Blue Jays when they beat Texas, right? Big leaguers get paid 8 figures, and it's funny how baseball doesn't want baseball players to do that. I'm talking about the bigs real quick.
Yeah.
But remember the following season, all the ESPN promos were of that bat flip. It's like can't have it both ways.
Because it's good for the excitement of the game.
But the kid last night, it's the 13th inning.
Massive home run.
It's a super regional.
Too.
You know, you're trying to literally keep your season alive. It's do or die for your team, and you're pumped, and you do that. And he was looking right at his team when he did it. He didn't show up the other guy directly, at least. Nor do I think in his mind he was like, when I spike this bat, I'm going to put the fear of God into the Florida dugout. Like that's not what he was doing. No. That's not what he was doing. But at the same time, you can't do it. But Jack Leggett, what are you thinking, man? You are hurting your program, and it's not your program anymore.
Which is why I'm very confused as to why he's in the dugout in that capacity.
I asked somebody today. Apparently, Eric Bakich, you know. Listen, I think Kevin O'Sullivan in the other dugout and Tim Corbin in Nashville. You know, those three guys were Jack's assistants for a bit.
Legendary coaching tree. My goodness.
Yeah, how'd they not win a college World
Series? That's great. That's spectacular.
But I did hear Dave Neal and Chris Burke talking about it, and like the four of them combined have nearly 4,000 wins as college coaches. It's pretty remarkable. It was 3,000 and something. I forget the number, but it was 3,000 and something. Anyway, he got hired to be some kind of special assistant, consultant, something or other, but he's not an assistant coach. He's more of an advisor. So he's even though he's wearing baseball pants, which, like, okay.
It must have triggered a response in him that he's got that uniform on, that he's going straight back out there.
The whole, and I knew he was like on the baseball staff in some capacity, like in the program. I knew that. But I honestly, until yesterday, didn't realize that he was like a baseball pant wearing guy in the dugout all the time. But I don't know what he was thinking because I do, I think, though, right? I'm Jack Leggett. Yeah, you are, but not that way. You can't do that.
You are, but you still can't come out here and argue that.
You can't do that. And then the umps were like, "Hey, buddy, seriously, you can't do that. You're gone."
And suspended. That was an automatic suspension.
Yeah, strict rule here. You broke the rule. But then I think they didn't want to toss Coach Bakich. And then he kept, like, they were like, you need to leave the area while we discuss the other rule, which, again, was the bat spike. And Bakich wouldn't leave.
And he was arguing the ejection of Mathis, which didn't happen, which was not a thing. They did not eject him.
Right.
So he argued over something that wasn't going to happen, which is also really bizarre. That's what made that more spectacularly bizarre, is that ultimately when Dave Neal in the booth finally got info as to what was happening, because they were in the dark for, that was what, a 7-8 minute ordeal?
Yeah, after the 20-minute one earlier.
Yeah. And then now finally we have a pitch thrown, and then after that the broadcast knows or got word exactly as to what the ruling is, which is embarrassing in itself. But they finally got what the ruling was. And when I heard that they weren't tossing Mathis, which A, I thought good, shouldn't, but B, it's like, what are we arguing about then? What was this whole thing about?
And I think it's because they then realized
spectacular waste of time
that these ejections were going to. I mean, let's what if that had been the final run of the game and Clemson wins? Then they're playing today without their head coach. Forget about whether they are or aren't playing with Jack Leggett. Again, that's immaterial.
Right.
Again, that's why I say what Jack Leggett did was so unnecessary and
bizarre. Bizarre.
But Bakich, sitting there and sticking up for him that way, then became a thing. But when you show up the umpires like that, and then you try to get the crowd to start doing it, that's just a bad look. And I'm with you. I'm glad they didn't run the kid because the kid was just pumped up, and that's fine to be pumped up that way. I don't have it's questionable. It's questionable. Earlier in the game, too, they had thrown out a kid named Jack Crichton. This was in the second inning. And there was a play with Jack Caglione and a kid named Nolan Naraki. Naraki was Clemson's player, hit a little dribbler to Caglione, who fielded it along the first baseline as the starting pitcher, Caglione. And they forcefully ran into one another pretty good, and then they were jawing a little bit. Crichton had been on second and that was the third out of the inning. Crichton had been on second, had touched third, and was kind of rounding his way down the third baseline. Clemson was in the first base dugout as a team. And he gets, let's just say, 2/3 of the way down. The inning is technically over at this point, and there was no dispute about that. And Crichton then, makes a beeline for where for lack of a better term, where the scrum kind of was. And you can't do that. That's also, again, a very clear rule. And they discussed it, and they're like, yeah, you can't do that in college baseball. You want some guys to come out and, quote, defend their teammate and take up for the guy, yeah. But what he did is something that you cannot do. But, Clemson lost in the bottom of the 13th because of two singles, a beautiful bunt, and a double to left center that won the game for the Florida Gators. They move on. More on this and the rest of the CWS as the postgame show continues.
A lot of teams punched their ticket to the College World Series yesterday, which is a goal of theirs. And a lot of people also have some weight loss goals that they would like to achieve and be able to get their life to where they have that feeling like you're going to the College World Series or like you're in the best physical shape you've ever been. I was working towards that. My friends at Columbia Secret for Weight Loss helped me surpass that and a whole lot more. Look, it's not an overly complex program. You get great coaching. Paul Grant and Shaylin over at Columbia Secret for Weight Loss did wonders for me in terms of helping keep me on track. Sometimes I need to be coached. I need to be pulled in the right direction. I need to be able to keep my eyes on that goal and eyes on the prize. And that's my favorite part about the entire program is the coaching and doing it without any shots or pills. If you're interested in Columbia Secret for Weight Loss, give them a call, 803-824-4210. Results may vary.
Whoop, sorry. Hit the button there, Phillips. Welcome back into the postgame show. Saw my mouth moving if you're watching on YouTube.
That's a false start, technically.
Whoops.
I'll be 5 yards.
Well, it was a real start.
Well, the button has to be on because it's not a real
Sure.
start if the words that are coming out of your mouth aren't going out over the air.
It's fair.
Therefore, false start, 5 yards.
All right, that's
Replay
true.
first.
It is. That's at least some kind of illegal procedure or some such, I guess.
It's procedural penalty.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, never
Well
mind.
done.
No, I was trying to think of another penalty analogy, but you know what? You're probably right. It's going to be a 5-yarder either way.
I'm throwing the flag.
Yeah, that's a 5
I'm
yard.
moving the ball back.
That's 5 yards, and that's certainly on me. Again, we are talking baseball. College World Series is nearly set. It will be an all ACC versus SEC affair. Could be 4-4 if NC State wins. Otherwise, it will be 5 SEC and 3 ACC if Georgia wins.
The league going 5-0 in super regionals would be wild.
I've seen some, I guess, and I'll get back into some phone calls in just a second here. I've seen just as a food. This is. I'm planting this seed. Is this good or bad? Or I guess the third option is just indifferent and just sometimes bleep happens when it comes to college baseball. So good for baseball, bad for baseball, or for baseball. We'll get into that. But we've been talking about the controversies, plural, around the Clemson game yesterday. Tigers ultimately lose 11-10 in 13 innings. Kind of felt like Florida was going to win this series anyway, just maybe didn't see it going down the way it did. But Andy wants to weigh in on what we were discussing. Hey, Andy, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, guys.
What's up?
My brother was there. I called him because I'm a Gamecock. He's a Tiger, and I rarely call him to say, sorry about the loss. But that one. He said like the TV did not make it. Like it did. He said it was absolutely nuts there. Plus, they pointed out how long they had been there that day, and so they were amped up, and he said they weren't really mad with Florida per se. It was all on the umpires and the refs. So I don't know. I got to see the ending. That's about it, and that was the craziest part. But it was a lot of people have been talking smack about they got farther than us, but they were number 6, I believe, and they lost to a 500, barely over 500 SEC team. So I thought that was cool. So
yeah,
he said that it's gonna haunt him for a long time.
No, that one's going to sting, and I have some thoughts on that part of it too that I'll come back around to. Andy, thank you for the phone call. Yeah, that was like nearly 5 hours, right? I mean, maybe
it looked like there were some sunburns in the crowd.
Yeah, well, because it started early, and then again in the second inning, that first umpiring decision / delay was about 20 minutes. A lot of pitching changes for both schools. Obviously, 21 combined runs in a 13-inning game. Then a second umpiring delay. And again, emotion, not just running high, emotion on like triple supercharge.
Everyone in that ballpark felt amped up.
Yeah. Florida, I will say this for Florida, and again, we try not to make predictions. I don't like predictions. I think Elijah likes them more than I do. In my career, I've just never been a prediction guy. It's not I'm afraid of being right or wrong. I'll tell you what I see and what I said going into the tournament, not just the weekend, but even last weekend. I was like, listen, Florida's good. I know Florida's record says they're not, and I'm certainly a believer in you are what your record says you are. There are also exceptions to rules. And I said this on Twitter Saturday after Florida's first win. Florida's got 40-win talent, but something disconnected this year. I don't know if the dudes don't like each other. I don't know if dudes don't like Sully. I don't know if they didn't take their midweek game seriously enough. Yeah, I don't know.
Pitching was pretty bad. Non-Jack Caglione pitching was bad for a lot of the year.
For a lot of the year it was, but to the point, I still felt like that lineup could overcome some of that. That's not a 28. That shouldn't have been a 28-win team because everybody's pitching other than Kentucky and Arkansas.
A&M.
A&M has good pitching. But everybody's. I mean, Tennessee has good pitching most of the time, but Georgia doesn't really.
They have really good starter.
LSU didn't this year. Anyway, the point is, pitching numbers in the conference were just up, but Florida can score runs. They shouldn't have been one game over.
And underachieved. Fair to say.
Maybe they don't have 40-win talent. Maybe they have 36, 37-win talent. But you see the point I made.
Better than 28.
I liked their opportunity a lot. If they could just kind of, I know some people hate the term, but kind of refocus on who you are. I liked their chances a lot at the Stillwater Regional, mainly because I certainly didn't have any real belief in Nebraska. And
Big Ten was bad.
And I like Oklahoma State, but I like Florida. And I said, I think Florida's going to win this regional. And I told you, we talked about it. This is an honor thing. I was like, man, listen, Florida now feels good about itself. I think they're going to go to Clemson and win. I didn't say Florida's definitely going to win that series. They're going to beat Clemson. But I was like,
felt good about it.
Yeah, here they go. I'm not going to be at all surprised when Florida gets to Omaha via Doug Kingsmore Stadium. But I'll tell you this, Andy, and I told Elijah this earlier. Yes, that loss last night is it stings right now real bad. And that sting isn't going to fade for quite some time. And in my opinion, now I could be dead wrong, but in my opinion, what that is going to do to that athletic department is fuel them to find those tiny little cracks in the foundation and not only fill them and strengthen them, but fill them and strengthen them like way more than the code would tell you need to. In other words, like last night, and maybe you would have already used the guy, okay, but follow my logic here. We need to go get the best closer in America. What's that going to take? We need a couple of other dudes in middle relief, maybe a big, strong lefty somewhere there. What's that going to take? One more bat somewhere. I don't want this to happen to us again, where a few little things like that, because that's the thing that's haunted Clemson baseball for 15 years, is they've been at home in the playoffs a lot, and they can't break through.
They have a lot of season-ending losses in their home park.
And so instead of going, oh, man, not again, Eric Bakich has played for a national championship. That's something Clemson would love to do. And in my personal opinion, the investment that they make in baseball is already big in what is obviously an incredibly strong conference. Mm-hmm. This will strengthen their resolve. They will put more into it, whatever that means. And in the NIL space and transfer space, I'm not going to be at all surprised when we hear that Clemson has signed one more solid power bat from somewhere and one more big-time, if not two, big-time back end of the game, back end of the bullpen type pitchers to fix what ails them. Kid that started yesterday was a freshman. He's pretty good. They're really good.
They'll be back. That's the thing. They're going to be back in the same position.
And that should send a little shudder down the spine, in my opinion, of people down here who, far too often, I'll admit, I say you don't need to worry about what Clemson's doing, because Clemson's not in your conference. You need to worry about your conference. But in baseball, the Clemson series feels like a conference series. It feels like a tournament series half the time. Mm-hmm. I said, there's nothing like Carolina-Clemson baseball.
That's a good litmus test for what your season's going to be, because it is so early.
Yeah. And this year, 2 5-4 games. And you didn't get to play the third one because of rain. But every pitch in a Carolina-Clemson series feels like a tournament type atmosphere, which I love. But in this case, as you see what happened to Clemson last night, do not think, in my opinion, that they will go, oh, man. Instead, I think they will redouble their efforts, and their efforts are already pretty strong. And so as South Carolina sits here, and I'm not saying that the events of last night have to have any kind of direct impact on Ray Tanner's hiring process, but don't think for a second that they're okay with how things ended, or that they won't look at what those little tiny things are that could make a difference for them.
Oh, they won't just patch things up. They will upgrade. And there's a difference between the two.
And what's South Carolina going to do? That's a real question here. The head coach is one thing, But what are you doing in those NIL and transfer spaces?
This is where comparing is going to matter because they are in a highly competitive conference that makes up one of two leagues in the College World Series. You're in a similar boat, not the same boat, but a similar boat. How do you upgrade yourself the same way they possibly can?
More of y'all's phone calls as the postgame show rolls on. Eleven minutes in front of 4 o'clock on this Monday afternoon. Welcome back in. Jay and Elijah with you. Appreciate you being with us. Again, top national story of the day. Dan Hurley will remain Connecticut's men's basketball coach. not going to take a nearly $12 million a year gig to coach the LA Lakers.
Which means J.J. Redick will probably, or James Borrego, who his last coaching job didn't necessarily go very well for him. So it is a lose-lose scenario for my Los Angeles Lakers.
7 head coaches in the last 14 seasons. So
that's stable, consistency.
Stability.
Yeah.
Gotta love it. After all those years of Phil and Pat.
That's kind of their problem, too, is they like to fire coaches without giving them, you can't have more than one bad year.
Jeannie Buss doesn't seem like that type of person, though, and yet here they are. So anyway, there is nothing new, sadly, for some to report. Before we get to Ernest, Elijah has a poll question for us today.
And you did kind of hit on exactly what the poll question is in terms of, are you nervous about not having any word on who the head coach is, because we have now reached a week of the coaching search. Transfer portal's open. This is kind of a pretty important time. So the poll question today at 107.5 The Game, if you want to weigh in. We've still got 20 hours left on this bad boy. We've got 189 votes, with the question being, with the Gamecocks baseball coaching vacancy going on a week now, how are we feeling? You're either 1, not worried, trusting the process, or 2, starting to get concerned. 57% is not worried, trusting the process. 42.9% starting to get a little concerned. And there's a couple of interesting comments here below. Ricky Werner says it's a clear sign his candidate is still coaching. And there's another comment from, looks like, at Johnny Savage, says, unless he has his eye on someone specific that is still coaching their team, then it is very worrisome. So there's kind of 2 different schools of thought here, if you're a Gamecock fan, on how exactly you feel about the coaching search taking this long, despite the transfer portal being open and being at a pretty interesting spot of your offseason.
Y'all hit us up with comments on Twitter or on the Firehouse Subs text line, 803-404-6100. Ernest wants to weigh in on this. Hey, Ernest, how are you, bud?
Hey, Jay, I talked to Terry about this when we were just looking for a baseball coach. And excuse my analogy of this, because I'm going to take it and you'll see how it's building. But looking for a baseball coach, okay, you just have a small dumpster fire, okay? But you're looking for a baseball coach, a softball coach, and a golf coach, all 3 at the same time. You don't have a dumpster fire. You have a 3-alarm fire. And if I'm a student athlete looking at this in any other sport, I'm sitting there going, if I'm coming for football, soccer, how long is my coach going to be around? It makes the student athlete start to think. And I talked to Terry when we were just talking baseball, but now you're looking at 3 coaches, and you've had 4 coaches in the last 4 years, to include your basketball coach. What's that saying about our university? Ray Tanner's got to get a hold of this and get a hold of it quickly, or maybe we might be looking at possibly a new athletics director.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that last part, but you do raise some interesting points, Ernest. And let me further this, because as he said it, I kind of went back in time in the last couple of weeks here. Each of the coaches that has been fired that he mentioned, Mark Kingston, Bill McDonald, Bev Smith, this season, all made the NCAA tournament. Now, you can say, well, that means that they're underachieving relative to expectation, and that may well be true. But that's why we said about even baseball, this is not a program that's been like just completely run into the ground. Yeah, a couple of years ago, it looked that way when you didn't make the tournament. But last year, Carolina hosted. This season, you were on the verge of hosting. I'm not going to rehash that. You all know what happened. Bev's team didn't win a lot of conference games, but they play in a great conference. And Bill McDonald's team, their best player got hurt in a bus accident, and it just it just shifted everything in terms of who they were. I'm not here to make excuses. I'm just telling you some of the facts. But it is interesting that each coach that was fired made the NCAA tournament this season. So, Ernest, what signal does that send? I suppose that, like a lot of things, not trying to be Obi-Wan Kenobi here, but it may depend greatly upon our own point of view. To some kids, it might be like, man, they're firing coaches that make the tournament. And then there's others who can be like, oh, no, making the tournament is not enough here at South Carolina. And listen, yeah, I don't know. Carolina's like a lot of things, they're in the bottom half of the SEC when it comes to spending on some of these sports. But that's the reality of South Carolina relative to some schools. Does that mean they don't have everything they need? Yeah, I don't know yet. And again, with NIL, especially in a sport like golf, where maybe just a couple of things can go your way, or in baseball, softball's getting that way too. But it is interesting that all three made the national tournament. And you said it was time to move on. Hour 2 coming up. Okay. Welcome back into the postgame show on this Monday afternoon. It's 4 o'clock. Remember where you were.
Do you love M. Night Shyamalan movies?
Alongside Elijah Campbell.
Because this is about to resemble one.
I'm Jay Phillips.
Truly.
We are working as hard as we can to get further confirmation of this. And while what I'm getting ready to tell you is not a done deal, I will tell you that this comes from Teddy Cahill of Baseball America. I've thrown out as many feelers as I can in the last little bit here. It's hard to do a lot of research when I'm on the air. Teddy Cahill, Baseball America, longtime college baseball national reporter, says that South Carolina and Paul Mainieri are in talks for Coach Mainieri to become South Carolina's next baseball coach.
Huh?
Yeah. This is absolutely. This is again. I try in my profession and with my years of experience to not have too many things shock me. I didn't really know Coach Mainieri wanted to get back into coaching. I do remember that like his name was floated, I think, when Link Jarrett left Notre Dame for FSU, but it's only because Coach Mainieri had been there. Like, well, you know. He didn't retire because he didn't love coaching anymore at LSU. I think he was having some health issues that I suppose have been fixed. This is a man who has taken 2 different programs to the College World Series. He's a national champion. He's a national runner-up. I don't know how, I mean, he's got gobs of wins. Do we have his career? Can you look up his career record for me?
Well, we'll be looking it up.
I'm going to say he's got like 12 or 1,300 wins probably in college baseball. I mean, he's done it forever.
Hall of Famer. I mean, this is.
Again, this is not a done deal, but this would be gigantic. And would certainly, I think, satisfy what a lot of people are looking for. A proven veteran head coach with plenty of Omaha experience. Plenty of experience in winning at a high level consistently.
Over 1,500 wins.
Over 1,500 wins. Wow.
1,505,
Okay.
770, and 775.
Wow.
And 8 ties. Career winning percentage of almost 66%.
But he's 66 years old, so you're not going to be. This is not. I don't want to say it's temporary. That's not what I mean. But you know, this might not be something where you're putting this guy in the seat for the next, 10 years.
Everything in life's temporary if you think about it, Jay.
Fair. And at that point, who does he bring with him, and all those kind of things. Again, what is the commitment to NIL and to, some facility enhancements if necessary? Those are all, I think, very pertinent questions, especially for a man like this coming in where at LSU, what do you need? Let's go get it done. And will that be the same? If he's the guy. You have also just let me know that our very good friend David Cloninger has said what? Here, I want to make sure because you saw it, I didn't, so...
Yes, David. And when David tweets stuff like this, you have to believe that something's up. And David, I guess during the break, did tweet this out that South Carolina's Board of Trustees has called a meeting for 4 p.m. tomorrow. Quote, approval of athletics employment contracts, end quote, is on the agenda.
Okay. Now, that could certainly, to be fair here.
There's multiple openings.
There are 3 openings, and I know for certain that the leading candidate for the men's golf coach was on campus over the weekend.
So it could be that. Very much so.
And bear in mind, too, now, again, I'm not trying to dampen the mood. I'm giving you fact.
Context.
When the board calls a meeting, they must do it with 24 hours notice. So if David just put that out, then that means in the last hour, maybe they sent word to the Horseshoe, all right, y'all need to go ahead and schedule your meeting. Could be. I've been led to believe that they would like to make the baseball hire first because of the PR impact. It's interesting to me now to not just try to dampen the mood, but to try to, remove the dampness here and bring the heat back up. Teddy Cahill put this story out. Let me go back and look. At 3:48, not even 20 minutes ago. So let's say a national guy like Teddy, who's probably connected either to Coach Mainieri or Coach Mainieri's agent, because that's how this works in life. These national guys they got the ear of the agent. Gets word in the 3 o'clock hour. And then coincidentally, the South Carolina Board of Trustees calls a 4 o'clock meeting.
The timeline certainly is adding up.
The following day. This would be big for South Carolina. I think this would be one that because again LSU didn't want him to leave. He was just like, man,
He had some health stuff. I think he had some migraine issues.
But a couple of years away, maybe has re-energized him. He feels better, and he's ready to take it on again. So. And at the 11th hour, is this a name that crept in? Is this something where, and again, I don't know. Now we're just talking amongst ourselves. Does Ray Tanner call Paul Mainieri? Does Paul Mainieri's agent call Ray? Does Paul call Ray himself?
What kind of relationship do they have? They've coached against each other.
They did.
For a long time.
They did. So interesting. Paul, in fact, did Carolina beat Notre Dame in 2003? I got to go back and look. And then right after that's when Paul went to LSU.
Yeah, he left. 2006 was Paul's last year at Notre Dame.
Okay. I was thinking it was right after, but it was a couple years. But
announced in the regional.
I know they were in one World Series together when he was at Notre Dame in Carolina. I think it was 2003, right? Am I right about that? That's fine. Yeah,
nope. South Carolina was in a different regional.
Okay. So they did not play each other in Omaha that year?
Nope, not that year.
Okay. But I knew he was there. So anyway, that's beside the point.
2002 might be it.
Okay.
I think that's you're off. Very close.
I'm trying. I'm old. This would be now I want to hear from you guys. All right. So, what do you think of this? Does this, for those who want Omaha experience, this certainly brings it.
In droves.
Tons of success in the Southeastern Conference. There's all kinds of things to like about this potential hire. But I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves.
Because we haven't even heard the name Paul Mainieri. Like me and you, we talked to a lot of people, and the name Paul Mainieri has not come up once in any of them. We've gotten like the same, a recycled list of like 4 or 5 names that we get, and not once has Mainieri come up, which is, this is a curveball to end all curveballs. It's a curveball that's, making Greg Maddux blush. This is remarkable. This has even gotten out. Teddy Cahill, it's not like,
Yeah, it's not just some dude.
It's not.
Teddy is, Teddy's basically, at BA, he's kind of the main guy. When you look at the guys at D1, there's sort of that triumvirate, right? And really 4 now with Joe Healy, too, who's doing a fantastic job. And I'm not, Aaron Fitt is a regular, Kendall Rogers is a great guy. Mark Etheridge was on Terry and Tyler's show last week. Aaron's been on with us, 3 or 4 times this season alone. He's on with us a bunch. Teddy Cahill is at their level, is my point. This is a national guy, and this is obviously a very well-respected publication within the industry. So Teddy knows what's up. He's very, very well connected. Daryl just hit us on Twitter. If it proves to be Mainieri, you'll be able to knock me over with a feather. Yeah, Daryl, I didn't see this one coming.
You can do that to me right now.
Yeah,
Goodness
I would
gracious.
not have seen, because again, I just, my mind wouldn't go to Palmetto, if only because I thought he was done.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Health-based retirement at, over the age of 60 usually means you're not coming back.
And he's done well for himself. Maybe he and Mrs. Coach are enjoying, sailing around the islands and such, or whatever they like to do.
Maybe maybe one can only golf so much.
That's probably true.
Even though there is, in the midst of information hunting that we've been doing, there is a former D1 baseball coach that I talked to who's been out of it for a little bit, and he was like, I wouldn't mind getting back into coaching one day. We're just making small talk or whatever. And he's like, I wouldn't mind getting back into coaching one day. I can only do so much fishing and working out. I said, you know what? Fair. I don't blame you. Coaching makes him feel alive.
Yeah, that's why. I'm not a sit around kind of guy. I gotta, like, my wife doesn't mind on Saturdays, and my wife has a full time job too. But I'd be like, all right, give me something to do.
Oh man, you'd have to do wellness checks on me to make sure I'm still alive, buddy. I'm disappearing.
Yeah, no, I just I like doing stuff around the house. I just like staying busy, so I get it. But anyway, if you've just tuned in the last couple of minutes, Teddy Cahill, national college baseball reporter for Baseball America, says South Carolina and Palmetto are in talks. Let's see here. Yeah, Elijah, you were just citing this, I guess. Let me go to Teddy's piece. When Mainieri retired 3 years ago, he writes, sources said he stepped down because of health issues as he suffered from migraine headaches in 2021. After his retirement, however, Mainieri has never gone far from coaching. He was involved in searches at Notre Dame in 22 and Miami in 23 before passing on both opportunities. He was the National Coach of the Year in 2009. Again, he has won the World Series. He has been the runner-up at the World Series, and he's got tons of championship success in the Southeastern Conference at LSU. So, and 3 years out, you got the itch. I'd love to know more about how this came about, and then clearly this is some type of, as I said, 11th hour situation. So maybe over the weekend?
Would have to.
Because I've talked to a lot of people who've been following a lot of this, and that this is just a name that did not come up. But then, now look, it was the weekend, but still, when things like this are rolling, sometimes there's word that trickles out, and it did go quiet this weekend.
Hey, to use an example of a coaching news bomb we didn't think we'd ever hear, John Calipari, in a span of 3 hours in one meeting with the CEO of Tyson and the Arkansas AD to help them pick who their next head coach is going to be, ultimately came to the conclusion, hey, why not you?
Right.
And guess what? It happened from the idea went from, helping you find your coach to, what? I'll be your next coach in 3 hours in a hotel room in Phoenix, Arizona. Yeah. It can happen that fast.
And this may be it. All right, hit us up. What do y'all think? If this is the guy, Coach Paul Mainieri, championship level, National Coach of the Year level guy, returning to the game at South Carolina after great success at Notre Dame and LSU. 803-404-6100 on the phone lines, the Firehouse Subs text line. You're listening to the Postgame Show. Oh, it's been hot. It's going to get hot and stay hot. And in South Carolina's Midlands, AAA Heating and Air will help you as your year-round ally against changing weather. But maybe most importantly, as your summertime ally against high heat and high humidity. Let their expert team ensure that your home is always an oasis of comfort. And with guaranteed financing, it's more affordable than ever because of the special offer that Roy and Dana Finley are offering all AAA customers: 12 months, no payments or interest in 2024. Plus, the 15-year parts and labor warranty speaks volumes of the trust that Roy and Dana have in their service and in their products. They have been and are in it for the long haul, just like their warranties. Get a free quote today at call AAAtoday.com, call AAAtoday.com, or call them up at 803-677-1500. Tell them we sent you, and stay cool with AAA Heating and Air. Nineteen minutes after 4 o'clock, Monday afternoon. Welcome back into the postgame show. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell with you. Appreciate you being with us. Again, nothing to confirm yet. But if you've just tuned in the last little bit, Teddy Cahill, Baseball America, put out about a half hour ago that South Carolina is now targeting Paul Mainieri to become the next head baseball coach at the university. Coach Mainieri, of course, tremendous success at Notre Dame and LSU, at Air Force too. before Notre Dame, but took Notre Dame to the World Series, obviously won national championship at LSU, multiple SECs, played for another national title. I believe they were the runner-up to Florida. Is that right? In 17? Check that out for me, Elijah, but I believe that's who they lost to. Retired after the 21 season, had a few health things.
Correct, it was Florida.
Thank you. And now could very well be interested in returning to South Carolina. Now, again, the verb that Teddy uses, targeting Paul Mainieri. I'd like to know, and I'm quite serious before I get into some phone calls, is Carolina targeting him? Or is this something, and just again, to throw further information into the mix, our very good friend David Cloninger has put out, so this will be public knowledge because it has to be, it's the law, that the South Carolina Board of Trustees has called a meeting for tomorrow at 4. And Teddy put this out a little before 4. So I'm trying to, piece it together here. I'm not like Hercule Poirot or anything, but you see some of these clues begin to link up. And David says that the purpose of tomorrow's board meeting is athletic contract. What was the official word? Don't worry about it. Athletic contracts.
Yes. Contract.
There was
contract approval.
Approval. Okay. And again, I've been told that they'd like to do the baseball hire first. If you missed it over the weekend, Bev Smith was let go. Good luck to her. And we'll be reaching out if he's available. Coach McDonald will be, to get Coach McDonald on this week, for his regular visits as our golf major correspondent. The U.S. Open up the road in Pinehurst. I've never been to Pinehurst.
Scotty Scheffler, heavy favorite to win it.
Watched a little bit of the Memorial yesterday, and that's a hard tournament to win. That baby's tiny. I guess it's nice to have a private jet, right? You don't have to worry about going through the airport.
With a crying toddler.
Yeah. That ain't a toddler. Yeah. I need me a baby. That's a baby.
True, yeah.
That baby's like 2 weeks old or something, man. Whatever it is, not old. But Paul Mainieri looks like he has risen to the top of the list to take over at Carolina. I want to hear from you on Twitter at jphillips1075 or at 1075 the game. And you can hit us up on the text line. John would like to weigh in on the phone line, and he is up next. Hey, John.
Good afternoon, guys. I'm also just tuning in, so this is late breaking. So I'm sitting here a little stunned. It has a little feel of a Steve Serger, Lou Holtz hire, if we think about the football angle.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys have already talked about this because I've just tuned in. Is this potentially bringing on Paul with a Monty Lee coaching waiting angle?
I got no idea on that, man. Great question. And I do think, to be fair, in fact, Terry Ford just texted Elijah and me and said, how might this operate in the NIL space? I think you're going to go after, for lack of a better term, John, young and hungry assistants. Now, I'm not saying Monty can't fit that bill. Monty's not as young, perhaps, but still hungry. But I think Monty wants to be – we talked about this last week. Monty wants to be a head coach again, now. And from what we were told last week, it was ready to take the Citadel job. So that may still happen. So I couldn't answer that question. I think it's a fair question, though, in the sense, again – not to say he couldn't do it for a while longer, but Paul Mainieri's 66 years old. So you're not hiring somebody in their 40s that might want to be here 15 or 20 years or something like that. I don't think this is a quick fix either, but the Lou Holtz angle is interesting. Now, Coach Spurrier was here 12 seasons, or at least 11 seasons maybe. But, Lou, and I remember, listen, I had people tell me after the second bowl win, 2 straight wins over Ohio State, which would have been years 2 and 3. Lou told Mike McGee, "All right, I did what you needed me to do. I'm out." And listen, go ahead, John.
Interesting to hire a 66-year-old in an NIL era is a little head scratching, but that's why I think the Monty Lee thing is interesting.
Yeah,
you're almost forced to have a coach in waiting just based on the age.
That's
and
fair.
The nature of work.
I think
it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, thanks for the phone call, buddy. I think that's a fair a fair point to make.
A lot of people are asking that on our text line. That seems to be the common question is, would you keep Monty as an assistant, one? And is the age a concern? Age plus the previous health issues. Would that be a concern?
I think it has to be. I mean, why wouldn't it be, right? I mean, you wouldn't be honest with yourself if you said, "Oh, you retired for health reasons, but you're fine now." Yeah, you look, no, you would, you need. And I'm not saying you're doing like when pro athletes get traded or they're going to be, or pending his physical, right? There's always you got pending the physical, and. I feel like 95 out of 100 times everything's fine, but, maybe those other 5, we found a little something here. All right, deal's off. Or, let's restructure this a little bit. And I'm whether it's Monty Lee, a lot of you might say, okay, now is when you go get Landon Powell.
Already coming up on the text line, yep. Landon Powell, assistant coach, ? From Christian.
Look, that Paul Mainieri is going to be able, as someone of his stature, to command the attention of a lot of coaches, assistant coaches. Now, here again, and I just, what's his budget? That could be part of this. Again, the word being used is targeting. So now, is it about, all right, Ray, what are you now? Listen, these two guys are they know each other well. Very well.
Mm-hmm. Very familiar.
And one of the things, now, I said last week on multiple occasions, so one of these things can still be accurate and the other one wouldn't be, and I say that tongue-in-cheek. What I said last week was what this fan base primarily wants is for Ray Tanner, as the athletics director, to go find a baseball coach that fits the bill of Ray Tanner of 20 years ago. And then do for that coach what was done for Ray Tanner 20 years ago to turn this program into the best baseball program in America, which was done. Now, you may not be able to do that again. The landscape has changed, but not so dramatically, perhaps, that South Carolina can't get back on top. The point I make is you don't need a new ballpark, but you will need some enhancements, but you will need young, hungry go-getters out on the recruiting trail. Mm-hmm. You will need someone who can be excellent with the numbers in terms of the NIL space. Listen, one of the things that I think gets lost in this, and I don't have as much of a concern about, is the transfer portal, and here's why. While now you are getting more guys directly from D1 schools who want to transfers in and out of baseball programs is as common as, the sun coming up every day. Junior college ranks, community colleges, you could still transfer, but sometimes you'd sit out. So in terms of the JUCO and community college especially, college baseball coaches, assistants, head coaches through the generations are very accustomed to that level of roster movement. The difference now is really just, again, that somebody from, East Carolina can go straight to NC State. Right? Somebody from Coastal can go to Georgia. Somebody from Carolina can go, whatever. I mean, look at Michael Braswell. Went to LSU from Carolina, I could, y'all get it. Y'all get it. So the transfer stuff is not as much of a concern. How much money you got? How much money you got for your staff? How much money you got for your players? How much money you got to attract them and keep them? That's going to be the thing,
because that will directly affect the other.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing to maybe be anti-transfer portal, but it's another one to see the money that you're going to have and the resources you could have to be like, okay, well, I can actually use this to my advantage and this could help me win. If you don't have one, it's going to be really hard to help the other.
All right, this thing is all of a sudden flying by. All right, let me hit a break. Hit us up. Again, more of y'all's thoughts. We're going to get to the Firehouse Subs text line, 803-404-6100. Let us know what you think about this. Again, national report, Paul Mainieri being targeted as Carolina's next baseball coach. You're listening to the Postgame Show. Guys, especially those of you over a certain age, you know who you are. Not feeling like yourself as you get a little older? Are you wondering why? Well, don't wait for it to change. Don't wait for it to go away. Don't think, going to be fine. It's no big deal. No, instead, call 803-875-MENS and set up a consultation with Dan Balknight and his team at the Men's Clinic. A one-on-one consultation. They'll learn about you. What do you do every day? What are your habits? Eating, physical activity, your job, your stress levels. You get some lab work, and they figure out what might be missing so that you get back to feeling like yourself again. So don't be the guy that won't go to the doctor, because the chances are really, really good that it isn't going to fix itself. 803-875-MENS, and learn more about what Dan and his team do when you log on to themensclinicsc.com.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell with a few accidents to get to you that are causing some issues on the roadways this afternoon. Some good news, though, to start off is that an accident has been cleared that was previously on I-20 westbound just after exit 61. Traffic moving much more smoothly through there. In Richland County, we still have an accident on US 321 near Sharp Road and Old Winnsboro Road that's causing some issues, as well as a couple in Lexington County, one on Piney Grove Road at St. Andrews Road and one at Highway 1 at Augusta Road at Laurel Road. Lastly, there's an accident on 26 West just before exit 76, still causing some issues.
We are talking about the Gamecock baseball search, and an interesting twist in the saga came down a little less than an hour ago as Teddy Cahill, National College Baseball reporter for Baseball America, put out the following, quote, multiple sources on Monday told Baseball America that South Carolina is targeting Paul Mainieri as its next head coach. As of yet, there is no confirmation that a deal is in place. That was the opening sentence of Teddy's piece that he put out. Again, it officially came down at 3:48. So like I said, a little less than an hour ago. The 2009 national title at LSU, 2017 runner-up in Omaha, losing to Florida. 39 seasons at LSU, Notre Dame, Air Force, and St. Thomas College of Florida. 8th on the all-time win list. The 2009 National Coach of the Year, but retired for health reasons. Was suffering from some pretty severe migraines, but did at least have some contact, as we've said a bunch here of late, kick the tires, maybe both sides kicking the tires when the jobs at at Miami and Notre Dame came open since he left LSU. And again, had the history, obviously, in South Bend, and that was after Link Jarrett left Notre Dame. That amazing run that they made to the College World Series, winning in Knoxville. And now Link, of course, is the head coach at his alma mater, Florida State, and they moved easily into the College World Series this weekend. This is, as you said, to use a couple of baseball terms that we use in life, out of left field or a big curveball. We had somebody hit us on Twitter. You could knock me over with a feather. Just had another buddy of mine. A buddy of mine hit me the other day and said, I want you to give me a tabloid list of names. So I did. And I said, Tony Vitello, Dave Van Horn, Brian Snitker, and the ghost of Tommy Lasorda. And he said, you could have put the current name on that list, and I'd have felt the same way in terms of how facetious you were being. And I was like, yeah, well, yeah.
I thought it was a prank. Terry sent me the link, about an hour or so ago, and I thought it was a prank. I thought it was fake. I was like, let me make sure that this link that says baseballamerica.com does not have, any type of one or number hidden in there to where, it makes you think,
Right.
like the fake Adam Schefter tweets where if you just look at the username, it's like Adam Schefter.
Well, the second that you said it to me, rather than go to Teddy's Twitter feed, I just went straight, because I have Baseball America as a tab. So I just went straight to Baseball America's web homepage.
I make sure it was real.
And yeah, right there at the top was the link to click. And I was like, okay. So there it is.
It's done.
To further this story, at least in some way, our good friend David Cloninger, beat writer for the Charleston Post and Courier, put out just a little while ago that the South Carolina Board of Trustees has called a 4 p.m. meeting tomorrow to discuss an athletic department contract. Again, the board must give 24-hour notice before they hold a meeting. Like I said earlier, that's the law. So, like I say, you do the math, and a Teddy Cahill piece comes up. Now, I'm not saying that this is about Teddy's report, right, other than Teddy gets some information in the 3 o'clock hour. And also, around that same time, probably not coincidentally, the Board of Trustees meeting gets called. So, like I said, it's hard for me to go get a lot of research done while we're on the air. I've thrown out a couple of texts to see what we get back. One very well-connected baseball source said to me, let me get to it again, just 2 words here. I think it was 2 or 3 words. It was, I am shocked, and then a follow-up text to that one, flabbergasted. And that's from a real good one. So I was like, okay.
I actually did get a text from somebody that that I've been talking to as well, very well connected with Ray, and said he's not surprised.
Yeah,
and I'm like, you're the only one. You are one of one.
I would just and again, we'll find out. Not that it matters directly, but I would love to know when this came around, because look, here's some of the things we're hearing. All right, let's just flesh this out. I think the interest on both sides in Tom Walter was strong. How strong? I don't know. On a scale of 1 to 10, 7, maybe.
It was certainly enough to warrant multiple discussions.
Yes. There's no question that in terms of if not interest, because I think the feeling around Monty Lee might be different than the feeling around Tom Walter. But, Monty's been working, but there's definitely interest, from Monty in the Citadel job, which is maybe where he thought he was going to be headed. And again, the reasons that Monty could become the head coach at Carolina are they're all valid and solid. It's just that he's not going to be the top guy. But if the interest in Tom Walter and Monty Lee was still where it was on, Friday, by Saturday, did something come around? Has Ray been working on this, very quietly? Again, Saturday morning is when they told us that Bev Smith got fired. Now, you can do multiple things, I mean, you got a big department.
He's got assistants.
Yeah. But we did have a call earlier from our buddy Ernest. You've got 3 vacancies right now. And I know I've said this a couple times, but I'm just reiterating. I've been told that they want to, even if they don't necessarily make it, like I don't know where they are in the golf and softball searches. I do know that a leading candidate for the men's golf job was on campus this weekend. I don't know how far along they are, basically 2.5 days after letting Bev go for softball. But I was told that they would like to make the baseball announcement first. So it could well be, and again, now this is just me talking, all right? It could well be that they've told a golf coach, you're the guy. We're good, but we're not going to announce you until we've done the baseball thing first. And I think that way you just, you get baseball done. And then move on to softball and golf in whatever order, depending on who you got. So yeah. And I think I know who you spoke with. Look, just this is not something, we've heard every other name, and we know where some of the interest was. This one was not one of those names as of.
No.
The last time I did any meaningful digging on this was Saturday morning. And this name still had not emerged from the people I was speaking with at all. And that's both local people and national people. And by that point, I said, you know what? I got kids at home. It's Saturday. I got yard work to do. I got things.
Left the phone a little bit.
I did. And I just kind of, I was like, all right, well, if some news comes to me over the weekend, that's fine. And then this comes during the show.
Out of just total left field, I mean, M. Night Shyamalan type plot twist. And, a good question we can ask ourselves before we head into this break, because we did get a text on the text line. That's a good question, because there's a lot of initial reaction along with our shock of seeing this story.
Yeah.
A question by Dane says, would you guys say that this hire would be a home run? And that's an interesting one once we let the shock settle a little bit because of just how far out of left field this ended up being. From a baseball standpoint, where do we think this hire actually is?
Okay. Let me chew on that. I got thoughts.
I do too.
And I want to hear, we got more on the text line that we'll get to. And let's get into a lot of what you guys are saying. 803-404-6100 Firehouse Subs text line. What do you got on the potential of Paul Mainieri, one of the greatest of all time, coming to run the baseball program at the University of South Carolina? You're listening to the Postgame Show. 11 minutes in front of 5 o'clock on this Monday afternoon. Welcome back in. It's the Postgame Show. Jay Phillips and Elijah Campbell with you from the Herndon Chevy Studios, downtown Columbia, South Carolina. Do want to remind you that Elijah and I on Thursday will be at Angry Fish Brewing in beautiful Lexington, South Carolina. They make some good ones, man. We've been out there before.
I have only had a very select few.
Yeah.
Angry Fish, so I am pumped.
It's good. It's good. I think, what's their slogan? They
Might be hanging around a little bit afterwards.
We drink all the beer we make and sell the rest or something. They have a funny little slogan, and I just screwed it up, but it's something like
you
that.
You did, but we're going to have it down pat by Thursday.
It's clever.
That's for sure. We're gonna have that pretty efficiently down.
Are you have it in front of you? I don't have it in front of me because I got something else in front of me, but apparently the one and only Mr. John Whittle.
That's right. The GOAT.
Has some more?
John Whittle. This is the headline from the Big Spur. South Carolina set to hire Paul Mainieri as head baseball coach. First paragraph, South Carolina has zeroed in on its next baseball coach, and it's someone familiar but unexpected. National championship winning coach Paul Mainieri is coming out of retirement to lead the Gamecocks. The Board of Trustees, which is scheduled to meet on Tuesday at 4 p.m., will still have to approve the hire of Mainieri.
They will.
I have a good feeling. Yeah.
Getting
a little choked up.
Yeah, well, I didn't see this one coming. Now, we had a question just a minute ago. Is this a so-called home run hire? Yeah. Yeah. I know
leaning towards it.
Yeah, I don't want to sit here and say, oh no, it's a triple or something like that. Is it a grand slam? I mean, let's try not to use too many puns and analogies here. Yes, and someone earlier mentioned it. This really could be a lot like hiring Lou Holtz. The difference is Lou Holtz took over something that had turned into complete crap. And it stayed that way for a year. So if you want to make that analogy, and I'm not saying that the guy was talking that way about the baseball program, but again, this baseball program was a 1 seed in 23 and a 2 seed in 24 and was on its way to being a 1 seed again. When the first official projections were coming out, South Carolina was number 10 in the country. And then it slid away from them. So this program's in pretty good shape. And again, the irony, if you will, is that of the 3 head coaches that just got fired last week or within the last 2 weeks, all of them made the NCAA tournament. So, there's that. This is a fantastic hire. This is a man who brings tremendous winning culture. He's not taking the job to do Ray Tanner a favor. In other words, Paul Mainieri clearly wants this job. Again, my biggest question is, how did this come about? Has he been there all along? Or was there someone who, and again, I don't know yet. We'll find out. Ray, did you call Paul? Paul, did you call Ray? Did somebody call somebody who knew somebody? Is this one of those, Ferris at 31 flavors kind of a things, and we play the telephone game until somebody says, sure. I mean, I don't know all those things, but this is a really, really, really big hire. And while it might not be the kind of name because he's 66 years old that you go, wow, again, if you could have gotten I don't know how old Dave Van Horn is, but Dave's probably about the same age.
Yeah.
So if you want to look at the hotter young coaches of today, Link Jarrett, Tony Vitello, guys like that, Chris Powell, or Pollard, excuse me, Powell, Landon Powell's who I'm thinking of. Sorry, Chris Pollard. I just looked down at the text and said, get me Landon as the assistant coach. My bad. Even Cliff Godwin, who's in his 40s. But none of those dudes have won the national title. And Coach Mainieri's played for 2 of them. Now, Ray played for 4. But that shows you where Ray is. I had somebody say, man, what if Ray had just stayed? Well, I'm not having that conversation.
If ifs and thans were pots and pans,
Yeah.
the world would be a kitchen, brother.
I'm not having that conversation. But yeah, I would expect that Carolina would have played for a couple more national titles. But sure, okay, there now I had that conversation. Yes, I think this is huge for South Carolina, if only because it shows that you can go lure this guy out of retirement. Again, I've been told, y'all, and I've said this on the air, that Tom Walter had heavy interest in this job. So I don't think it's ever been that you couldn't go get a big name. But just, again, how did this particular specific scenario come about? Again, I'll try to do a little bit more digging in the next couple of minutes. See what we find out for you. Headlines of the day, drive around the SEC. We'll get you set up for the final game of the Super Regionals. It's going to be an all ACC SEC affair. It's a matter of what the percentage split is. So a lot to do in the final hour of the postgame show. AAA Heating and Air. Been using them at my house for many, many years. The Phillipses stay nice and comfortable. And this time of year, it's just hot. And like I've said, there's nothing better than walking into the house on one of those muggy days and going, There's nothing worse than walking into the house on one of those muggy days and going, uh-oh, air conditioner's broken. If it is, 803-677-1500, one of the great techs at AAA Heating and Air can head out to your house and very quickly get you up and running again. But if your system is old and it's time for something new, but you say, I don't know if I can afford that. Well, you can. Guaranteed financing at AAA Heating and Air. Plus, a 15-year parts and labor guarantee and no payments or interest through 2024. 803-677-1500. Stay cool with AAA Heating and Air.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. A few accidents to get to that are causing some issues on the roadways. We'll go ahead and start with a couple of good news. Some accidents that have been cleared. One on 20 westbound after US 378 near exit 61, and one on 26 west just before exit 76. Those have been cleared. Traffic moving a lot more smoothly through there. Still got 3 in Lexington County that are causing some issues, starting with one at Piney Grove Road at St. Andrews Road, and 2 on Highway 1 at Augusta Road, 1 at Pisgah Church Road, and the other one at Laurel Road. All of those causing some minor traffic issues over in Lexington County.
Welcome back in. It is 5 o'clock news time and the final hour of the postgame show on this Monday. Alongside Elijah Campbell, I'm Jay Phillips. Appreciate you being with us. Let's get right back into what is the headline of the day here in Columbia, South Carolina. About an hour and a half ago, not quite, Teddy Cahill of Baseball America put it out. Kendall Rogers has now confirmed it, as has our good friend John Whittle here in Columbia. Paul Mainieri is expected to be named the next head baseball coach at the University of South Carolina. Coach Mainieri is 66 years old, won more than 1,500 games in his illustrious career, in the top 10 all time. National champion at LSU, national runner-up at LSU, national coach of the year at LSU, took Notre Dame to the College World Series in one of the seasons when South Carolina was also there. The first three-year run that Carolina was there, Coach Mainieri had the Irish in Omaha. Multiple SEC championships, retired 3 seasons ago due to some basically recurring migraines. So is now apparently ready to get back into SEC coaching. And a lot of, I haven't seen yet. I just saw a couple of things go by that there's a lot of people that don't like this. It's Twitter, so I'm not, I can't gauge anything on Twitter. I think this is a fantastic hire. Is it the first one? Listen, I've said before, so I'm not going to shy away from it, okay? I said last week, as soon as this happened, last Monday, Tom Walter and Chris Pollard are 1A and 1B. I go after one of them. I'm told that Walter had high interest in the job. Maybe that interest wasn't reciprocated. With Pollard, don't know what his buyout was. Don't know what it was at Wake Forest in terms of Tom Walter. You went after Cliff Godwin. Maybe he wasn't. Maybe he was choice one and you didn't get him. But you just, fans wanted someone who's been to Omaha and preferably, someone who's won in Omaha. Now, that list is short. Unless Ray's going to come out of, baseball coaching retirement. In terms of the men who have won national championships and are currently available, there aren't that many of them. I think the dudes that have won are pretty well locked in. You look at, Brian O'Connor at Virginia. You look at Kevin O'Sullivan at Florida. Jim Schlossnagle, is a big timer. I don't know if Schloss has won the title yet, has he?
Competed for it.
Yeah. David Pierce at Texas has been to the College World Series 3 times, and there's whispers that he may be on the way out, which is kind of remarkable to me, but okay. So you got a guy that checks the boxes, tons of SEC success, a guy who, by the way, if it matters to you, likes winning the SEC tournament.
Which is really cool. I mean, conference titles are awesome. You hang banners for those.
So there you go. A Board of Trustees meeting has been scheduled for tomorrow at 4. South Carolina, for what it's worth, is also in the hunt for a new men's golf coach and a new softball coach. If you did not see, we already knew that Coach McDonald wasn't going to return to his job as men's golf coach, but Saturday morning is when we found out that Bev Smith was let go as softball coach after many, many years. And again, each of the 3 coaches that were fired in this offseason all went to the NCAA tournament this year. So is that Ray Tanner kind of resetting the bar of expectation for his coaches? It's not just enough to make the tournament. And certainly we know that in baseball. And, in half of the years that Bill McDonald made it, they went on to the finals of the NCAA men's golf tournament. So, kind of like going to the Sweet 16 after you get through the round of 64. Bev Smith's teams, I don't think ever made it to the Women's College World Series, but they were in the tournament on a number of occasions. But anyway, Paul Mainieri seems to be the guy. And like I said, that's Teddy Cahill, Baseball America, Kendall Rogers, D1 Baseball, John Whittle here locally, Big Spur, and our good friend David Cloninger, the first to let us know that a board meeting had been called for 4 o'clock tomorrow. I think this is listen. No one. I don't know who you could get that's going to please 100% of the fan base. because
That's impossible. Yeah.
some of this fan base is just determined, for instance, to support Landon Powell for one reason, primarily anyway, and that's because he played at Carolina. Or now, with Monty Lee, because he's been at Carolina and he understands it. Well, again, if that's how you feel, that's how you feel. But so those people may say, well, I don't like this hire. Again, I can't really think, unless you were to go seriously get like Brian O'Connor. And even then, the people that want Landon Powell or Monty Lee are just going to feel that way because of something very, very local and seemingly personal relative to looking at the resumes. So you go get Tony Vitello out of Knoxville. I mean,
ain't happening.
Yeah, that ain't happening.
Ain't happening.
So, and again, you'd say, well, I just think Landon ought to have been given a chance, or I don't know why they won't give Monty a chance. I don't think that is what it is. You're trying to go get the best possible name that you think is the best fit with you as an athletics director as well.
We're trying to upgrade.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of firing a head coach, is because you believe you can upgrade the head coaching position. And you definitely did that.
And if Paul Mainieri has the hunger and desire to get back on the saddle listen, he's no stranger. Listen, y'all, in my opinion, I'm dead serious about this. Of course, Texas is coming in now, so it's different. But if you look at least at the old landscape of the SEC, I think the only program that had higher expectations every day for its baseball program than South Carolina's is Louisiana State. I'm serious. Now you got Texas coming in, and they're there too. Because, again, Texas, the whispers are that Texas may be looking to replace David Pierce if they can get somebody that they like. And David Pierce has been to the World Series 3 times. Hadn't won it yet, but he's been to the World Series 3 times in 8 seasons. That's the expectation levels in Texas. Welcome to the Southeastern Conference, too. So, what's your biggest drawback if you don't like this hire? What's your biggest positive if you do? I'd like to hear from you, and we'll come back around to this in the 5:15 segment, 803-404-6100. Hit us up on the Firehouse Subs text line. No hire is going to please everybody. Can't please everybody, don't try.
There's cons to every single hire, too. Even with some of the guys that are on top of our list, like Tom Walter, there are some cons.
Yeah.
And it is fair to say that, well, he only went to the College World Series once, and maybe there's a ceiling to his success, sure. And his overall winning percentage as a whole, while explainable, I guess I could understand, being cause for concern. And in this one, it's not just that Paul Mainieri left LSU for health reasons. It's he stopped coaching in 2021. What big NCAA change happened in 2021, Jay Phillips?
Yeah, the NIL.
NIL and the transfer portal, unlimited transfers, the landscape of college baseball and all of college athletics, even though that was just 3 years ago, is dramatically different. How open is he to embracing some of that change? You cannot be an NIL Grinch and take this job.
No.
You cannot be an NIL and transfer portal Grinch and win in the SEC. That would be my biggest holdover. Even if he's only here for 5 years, I'm a Gamecock fan. If you go to Omaha 3 times in those 5 years, that's a success.
Sure.
You want to get back? If
Just
you want
get
to get
back,
back
man.
so bad,
Yeah.
and you have a guy who has a track record of getting teams back to Omaha or getting teams to Omaha, then you take it, If that's the whole goal. I mean, this place, this fan base, this market is thirsty for a trip to the College World Series. And if you want a quick fix and a quick way to get back to it for the first time in a hot minute, this is a guy that can do it, even if he is only here 5 or 6 years.
Right.
You can have a coach in waiting. You can have assistants that you're able to groom for the job afterwards. Or you can pick up more intel to have another plan after that. Yes, sure, it would be, I guess, really, short term because he's not going to coach 20 years. But if you, like I said, you get 5 or 6 and you go to Omaha 3 or 4 of those times, shoot. If you get to a championship series, even one of those times, I think everybody would say that's worth it.
Well, like I said, just get back to Omaha once before you worry about the second and third time. But you've certainly got somebody who understands what that's like. And he went to the World Series several times. Again, he won it once, and he was a national runner-up on a second occasion. But they were there, obviously, at other points during his career in Baton Rouge. And I'm not going to talk about it right this second, but you mentioned you can't be an NIL Grinch as a head coach.
Cannot.
That's a two-way street with your school, too. So
Yep.
I want to come back around.
The symbiotic relationship between school, coach, resources. You got to be able to give them those resources if you want to get
And you
back
don't
to
take the
them.
job if you don't get the assurances, right? So there's that part of it too. Speaking of coaching change, as we continue our integrated media headlines of the day, Dan Hurley, if you didn't hear, did turn down the Lakers' offer of 6 years and $70 million. He will be returning to Connecticut, where he hopes to now win a third. I love how they say he's going to chase the third national title. I guess that is exactly what they're going to do because that's always the goal. I don't know that his only reason for returning to Connecticut is because I want to win a third national title. I don't think he wanted the Laker job. Yeah, for whatever reasons.
Or using leverage.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I want to be the cockeyed optimist in this one that says this wasn't a leverage play. Because he was already going to make a lot of money, and they've structured it to where he's going to make more as time goes on, especially in June. You know, you could have said, hey, I'm going after the Kentucky job and had a leverage play back in April. I think this came up because Jeannie Buss and Rob Pelinka were like, hey, we love what you do with your offense, and it's very geared toward – grown men who like to score 120 points a night. Would you like to come and at least see what we got to offer? Because like you and I talked about, it's not the Hawks or the Wizards or the Rockets or the Magic. It's the Lakers.
The biggest one in the sport.
But he didn't want to do it. Again, UConn was already preparing an even more lucrative deal than the about, $7 or $8 million he's going to make. I think you now put him into the same neighborhood as Bill Self and John Calipari. And if I may, Elijah Campbell, Dan Hurley has more national titles than John Calipari.
Twice as many.
Yeah. So there's that. Just saying.
It is a fact.
Just saying. There's that. And it's the Big East. Yeah, it's not some chump conference. It's the Big East. He had a 6-year, $32 million deal after the 23 season. They'll be reworking that. But Dan Hurley will remain with the UConn Huskies. Speaking of college basketball, of course, now it's the WNBA. If you did not yet hear, we haven't had time to talk about this, and we won't dwell on it. But Caitlin Clark is not going to the Olympics on the United States women's basketball team. I have repeatedly seen the word snub being used for this. I would not have seen it that way, but multiple outlets have used that word.
Some of those outlets probably think she's the only player in the WNBA.
Well, I mean, listen, ESPN's been using it all day long, and NBC Sports, who has the Olympics, has been using it all day long. I think The Athletic used it. I don't. If it's a snub, okay. I don't think it's like we're not taking you. She's not one of the best 12 players in America. Now, is she perhaps one of the 2 or 3 most marketable players? Yes. And that's what the Olympics is. It's a television show. Could NBC have applied more pressure to the USOC? Y'all know how much we pay you, right? Maybe do us a solid here. But then what if Caitlin doesn't play? Why isn't Caitlin playing at the Olympics? Is it better to just leave her off than take her and not see her play very much? Or once you're up by 30 on whomever in most games, at least in the preliminary round, do you put Caitlin in and let her light it up? It's not a done deal yet, and there are some injuries. She could be included, but I don't think she will. And at age 22, by the way, the youngest players on this team so far are 26. Mm-hmm. This is a professionals game now, and she's a rookie.
She's not one of the 12 best players in the world.
That's the headlines of the day, brought to you by Integrated Media, 803-948-8327 for all your home entertainment and home security needs. Nobody better in town than Integrated Media. Back to the big Gamecock baseball headlines as the postgame show continues. 20 minutes after 5 o'clock on this Monday afternoon. Welcome back in. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell reacting to the developing story. Again, nothing fully confirmed as of yet. Let's call it 95%, perhaps, is certainly what it feels like. Paul Mainieri will be the next head baseball coach at South Carolina coming out of retirement. Won a national title at LSU, went to multiple College World Series, National Coach of the Year, several SEC championships, lots of dudes in the bigs. I got a hit here. I got a couple of hits on the you got some texts as well that we're going to get to. John hits us on the Firehouse Subs text line. I think Mainieri could stabilize both the team and recruiting, assuming he can maneuver NIL and the fan base. The program has eroded to the point that the 2010 to 2012 run has faded away. Maybe he brings in a youngster like Landon Powell. Thank you, John. Let's see. Here's another one that says, this feels like Ray Tanner's best attempt to replace Ray Tanner with Ray Tanner, which is all most of us have ever wanted anyway. I think that one is also rather accurate for the majority of the fan base, many of whom we do not hear from via Twitter and the text line, especially Twitter. Not a lot of positivity on Twitter most of the time, it seems.
It's not notorious for positive affirmation.
Got a few others?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, Gamecock Russ comes in on our text line, Firehouse Subs text line, says, if Paul Mainieri is the guy, then it feels like the level of hire that was made when Steve Spurrier was hired. Like, let's shock the world hire, like you guys have said. It's certainly a let's shock the world hire because we did not see this coming.
Oh, it's shocked the baseball world.
We talked pretty religiously about this coaching search for the last week because it has gone on a week now today, and we get really good info and really reliable info. And the name Paul Mainieri would have gotten laughed off the show if that would have been suggested because it was just that far out of left field in terms of what felt possible. And so it's certainly surprising. If you would have told me at the beginning of this coaching search that you'll replace Mark Kingston with someone like Paul Mainieri who has the resume he does, that is a win. Despite the age, which I get is why it's a concern. I get the concern of why maybe someone who hasn't coached in this landscape of NIL is a concern. I totally get it. But you just replaced your coach who only got you to one super regional where there was not a lot of juice with the fan base and certain factions of it. You got a guy who has been to Omaha countless times, won a title, gotten it done, and that resume wasn't available to you with all the names that we talked about, with Tom Walter, Chris Pollard, Cliff Godwin, Dan McDonald, Chris Lamonis. This is a resume that we didn't think was available to you. So the fact that, you have a coach now with this resume, with this track record, with all this winning that he's done, I mean, despite the age, you upgraded.
I think the Steve Spurrier comparison is a fair one as well. And again, Paul's not taking this job without certain guarantees from Ray Tanner, who again is of his stature. Ray just stopped doing it. That's all. And I mean, I know that's a big. That's all. But had Ray continued on, is he thought of in the same exact way? I mean, heck, he played for 4 national titles. So anyway, the point I'm making is Ray understands what it takes, and this is what we said. Yes, to that second text I just read, most people are saying they want Ray Tanner to go find a Ray Tanner. He did.
He did.
and then they want Ray Tanner now to support the new guy, the way Ray Tanner was supported 20 years ago. And you would think that a guy like Paul Mainieri, hey, so what do I have to work with here? Well, I found some spare buttons in the back of my drawer. Will that work? No, that's not what it is. That's not what it is. Let's get back on the phones. Charlie is up next. Hey, Charlie, good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, guys. I'll tell you, if this does come to fruition, I think this hire checks all the boxes that the fans and all of our local media has been wanting. A proven winner that can quell the apathy of the fans. We need to get these fans back. That box is checked.
Mm-hmm.
Transfer portal, I'm not concerned about because I know that he's going to be bringing in some hotshot assistants that does have the experience of dealing with it. And once those things are in place, then the NIL money, I think it's going to be increased because why? The fans are now got something to buy into with this proven winner and get back to where we were 20 years ago. 14 years ago.
Well, and I think
regarding
20 years ago is fair, too, if only because, again, you had just finished your first run of 3 straight trips to Omaha, and you knew you needed to get in there, Charlie, and what are those next steps? You know, and you needed a ballpark. You got a ballpark. You needed, you know, an excellent ace recruiter, and that was going to cost you money, and you lured Chad Holbrook out of Chapel Hill, his alma mater, to come down to Columbia to help you with your baseball and to help you with your recruiting. Both worked. And then you went to 3 more trips to Omaha, and you played for the national title each time. Again, Paul Mainieri's not taking this job without the certainty that what he needs to succeed in the NIL space is there. He's not going to do that. He's not coming out of retirement for that. You know, not just not happening. Just not happening. I want to be careful with this because I am not able to confirm it yet, but there are, and I don't mean to sound coy, so I apologize, but speaking of big-time assistants, may well be that a very big-time assistant, not currently on staff, could be coming with Paul Mainieri. So I'm trying to work on that as quickly as I can so that I can give you all some confirmation. Otherwise, I don't want to just throw names out. But I know I could just keep it quiet, but I would say be encouraged because this is starting to look more legit. And if I can find out by the end of the show, I'll throw it out there. If not, I'm sure it'll be out on Twitter later. But if what I'm seeing, again, if I could back it up as soon as I can, I'll let you know. But it's starting to look like you're going to get some good ones that come in. And again, he's not coming back without being able to potentially, if you will, put the band back together from his perspective. 803-404-6100. Charlie, thank you for the phone call, buddy. Appreciate it. I'll tell you what, let me hit a break here. Let me try to get a little bit more on this. Drive around the SEC coming up. Got plenty of you on the phones and a lot more to get to on the text line, 803-404-6100. And I'll do some digging on what a potential staff could look like. This is the Postgame Show.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to get to that are causing some issues on the roadways this afternoon. We'll start here in Richland County. An accident on US 378 near Pineview Road and Hallbrook Drive is causing some issues, some slow traffic moving through there, as well as one on Longtown Road at Killian Road and one on Leesburg Road near Fairmont Drive. And lastly, in the county, one on Farrow Road at Highway 555 at Longtown Road. In Lexington County, we got a few to get to. One on Highway 1 at Augusta Road at Pisgah Church Road, one on Piney Grove Road at St. Andrews Road, and one on Two Notch Road near Sherway Road.
It is drive around the SEC time, and it's going to continue to be for a little bit here. Gamecock baseball time on the postgame show. Welcome back in. Jay and Elijah with you. Just tuning in, getting in the car after work. All signs pointing to Ray Tanner hiring Paul Mainieri to become the next baseball coach at the University of South Carolina. You say, Paul Mainieri, I know that name. No? Yes, you do. National champion at Louisiana State. National runner-up at Louisiana State. Went to the College World Series with both LSU and Notre Dame. SEC Coach of the Year on a couple of different occasions. National Coach of the Year back in 2009 from both Collegiate Baseball and Baseball America. He's also won the Skip Bertman Award, which is nice when you got hired by Skip Bertman to ultimately win his award.
I guess that's a seal of approval.
Yeah.
From Coach Bertman.
Went to the College World Series with Notre Dame in 2002. When he was at Notre Dame, he went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times in 12 seasons to the NCAA tournament. And newsflash, it's really cold in South Bend until about mid-April. At Louisiana State, went to the College World Series 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Was a national champion, went to the Supers in 3 other seasons while he was there. Only once did they miss the NCAA tournament. And that season, they still won 36 baseball games. So this man knows what's up. He's 66. He retired because of some migraine issues. I mean, let's just call them specific rather than say health issues and think like, what was it? He was suffering from some migraines, and it was just getting to a point where it was taking a toll. 3 years removed. He's feeling better. He's ready to go. I am trying to confirm about what the staff could look like, but I can't do that yet, and I am not comfortable with doing that without confirmation. That's how we try to do things. So I am working as best I can on finding out some more of that kind of stuff. I just had one friend text me and say, yeah, I got a few things I can give you, but I am not quite there yet. But we're working on it.
Our phones have just been blowing up.
Yeah, I'm trying. I mean, I almost wish I could say, Elijah, take over and let me go
make
some calls here. So I'm just telling people I'll get to you as quickly as I possibly can to try to get some further confirmation. I think this is a terrific hire. I genuinely do, and I would tell y'all otherwise. I think I've told y'all what I would have done last week. If it were up to me, I would have done everything I could to convince either Tom Walter or Chris Pollard to come take this job, or Cliff Godwin. Dan McDonald would have been on my short list as well. 3 of those guys, well, 2 of those guys have been to Omaha, and 2 have been to multiple supers. But I never would have thought. I thought Paul Mainieri was done, and I think a lot of people thought Paul Mainieri was done, and that's why I say I would love to hear more. And I believe that we're going to soon enough. I'd love to hear more about how these 2 guys got together. Did Ray just say, And again, I have no idea. You know what? I'm gonna call Paul. Yeah, hey, Paul, Ray. Hey, Ray. As you know, I got I've seen. You want it? Huh. Yeah. Tell me more. Is it that simple?
He was listening to the Paul Feinbaum show and he heard the Call Paul theme song and said, you know what? The answer might have been in front of me all along.
803-404-6100. Let's see what Justin has to say about this one. Hey, Justin, good afternoon.
How you doing, guys?
Good, man. What's up?
Hey, guys, I kind of like this hire, because who else we could have got? This is the best hire that went to MMA history, and we got to support this guy. And look, we get getting all we want, but it is what it is. But let's move forward, people. Go Gamecock.
All right, Justin, thank you. I like it. I do. At LSU, he won better than 69% of his games.
Nice.
In his total career, he's won 66% of his games in conference play. And remember, it's a tough league, 58% winning percentage. I'm looking here at LSU, 1, 2, 3, 4 times a sub 500 conference record, but also 1, 2, 3, 4 times 20 or more wins in the Southeastern Conference. And again, newsflash, it's hard.
Yeah, they may or may not be getting 5 teams in the College World Series.
Yeah.
At least 4. At least they'll make up at least half the field.
Which we do need to get to as part of the drive around the SEC. So I do want to get to that. And in fact, we'll get into a few more texts for you in just a second. Let me do what is
contractually
what I am obligated to do here and tell you about the drive around the SEC. Yesterday, Tennessee, Kentucky, Florida, and Texas A&M all punched their tickets to Omaha. Tennessee did so in runaway fashion, 12-1 over Evansville. Kentucky in a terrific pitcher's duel with Oregon State. Kentucky wins 3-2. Texas A&M last night was in a tight one for a bit, and then Oregon forgot how to throw strikes, almost literally. They walked in 5 straight dudes. You heard me right. And then a grand slam, and A&M goes on to a 15-9 win. Florida in 13 innings beat Clemson 11-10. There was umpiring controversy, but it did not have any direct impact on the baseball game. It was not strike zone or a blown call or anything like that. We already mentioned it a pretty good amount in the opening hour of the show. Jack Leggett is now some type of special staff member, but he's not an official assistant coach, but he's special enough to Eric Bakich that Eric Bakich lets him wear baseball pants. But he puts on a jersey that looks like Clemson's jersey.
His legacy allows him to still dress up as the coach.
But he wore a shirt that's not a Clemson jersey. It just had a big C on it, right? But it was purple like the rest of their jerseys were yesterday. But he wears baseball pants. But he's not allowed to come out of the dugout at any point in time to ever argue anything ever. And he did. And he got run. Now,
it's an automatic suspension as well.
What he argued about was, a legit argument, but it's Eric Bakich's argument. And then really the thing is nothing had actually happened yet. So last night, Alden Mathis, it's the top of the 13th inning. It's 9-9. And Alden Mathis of Clemson hit a home run to put them up 10-9. Clemson was in the first base dugout, and young Mr. Mathis was very excited about his home run. And rather than a bat flip, he did a bat spike. But in his defense, he didn't do it in any type of taunting way to Florida. But because of an incident earlier in the game, warnings had been issued to both benches about unsportsmanlike conduct, if you will. And so after he came around, they weren't going to disallow the home run, obviously. But after he came around and scored, the umpires were going to have a quick meeting to try and determine whether or not the bat spike was worthy of unsportsmanlike conduct, which would have resulted in Alden Mathis being ejected from the game. For what it's worth, they ultimately determined, nah, dude was just really amped, which is what I would have agreed with as well and do agree with. But Jack Leggett came out and started jawing. And again, he's not even an assistant coach. So then Eric Bakich comes out and tries to like back up Jack, and they're like, Jack, you're gone. Sorry, but that's kind of like arguing balls and strikes. Like the second you argue balls and strikes in baseball, you're gone. That's a rule. It's just you're gone. There is no, you can keep jawing, but you're gone.
John won't bring you back.
Yeah. And then so Eric Bakich gets all angry, and they told him, hey, step off, sir. We're trying to sit here and figure this out, and you're making it harder for us. And not only did Eric Bakich not back off, he kept coming at him, and then he decided to get the crowd all amped up and like work against the umpires, or so it appeared. Maybe that's not exactly what he was. I think he was just trying to keep the crowd amped. The crowd was amped. They just hit a home run.
There was energy. There was a lot of energy in that building.
And earlier in the game, if you missed it, a kid for Clemson named Jack Crichton got thrown out. There was a play just before in the second inning. Jack Caglione was a starting pitcher for Florida, and a kid named Nolan Naraki had hit a little dribbler up the first baseline. Caglione fielded it, and about 10 feet in front of first base, give or take, Caglione got the ball, and he did forcefully tag Nolan, but Nolan didn't like that, and they kind of just bowed up, which happens. And it probably would have just gone.
They weren't going to fight.
It would have just gone away. A few Clemson players emerged from the dugout, but didn't really go any farther. But the kid Jack Crichton was on second at the time. He had rounded third when the ball was hit. And instead of just casually continuing on straight to the dugout, which is what he should have done, he made a beeline about, 2/3 of the way down the third base line and ran towards the scrum, if that's what I can call it. Gathering, maybe it wasn't a full-on scrum. And you can't do that, and he got thrown out. And so there were already some umpiring things, but in the bottom of the 13th, Florida, single, terrific bunt, double win. So
hard hit double too. That
was a
no doubter.
Game over, and Florida moves on. So we now have 3 ACC schools that are definitely in. North Carolina, Virginia, and Florida State all secured their spots on Saturday. Yesterday, I told you the 4 SEC schools. Tonight at 7, do or die, NC State and Georgia from Foley Field. The winner will go to the College World Series. So we could have a 4-4 split, or if Georgia wins, it'll be 5-3 in favor of the SEC. Get into more of y'all's thoughts on the Palmetto news as the postgame show continues. All right, welcome back in. 11 minutes in front of 6 o'clock on this Monday afternoon. Jay Phillips and Elijah Campbell with you. Once again, the big story of the day locally, first put out by Teddy Cahill, Baseball America, confirmed by Kendall Rogers, D1 Baseball, our good friend John Whittle, our buddy David Cloninger. Paul Mainieri is set to be named the new head baseball coach at the University of South Carolina. A board meeting tomorrow at 4 has been scheduled for athletic department contracts and approval. Yes, South Carolina is looking for a men's golf coach and a softball coach.
The searches continue.
Maybe they get all three of them done.
That's a productive week.
I don't know. Maybe they do.
I've certainly had less productive weeks.
That way the board only has to meet once. Efficiency, especially in the summer, right? School's out.
That's great. Then they can all go on vacation.
Yeah. So tomorrow at 4. So we'll effort some of those guys on the program once they're done with their jobs. See what more we can gather. But it's I like this hire. This does. Again, had a text earlier. Ray Tanner has gone out and hired a Ray Tanner. Yeah, okay. He's in his 60s as opposed to in his 40s or early 50s or something. But Paul Mainieri is not taking this job without certain, guarantees of support, both in terms of paying a staff, securing NIL sponsorships, and funding. Again, I think some people misconstrue what we were saying, and it wasn't just us saying it like, again, I was talking to people down there, the facility, the baseball facility, and really the baseball part, not the fan experience part, but the baseball part could use a few enhancements. That's all. Enhancements.
To keep up, because the rest of the league is surpassing you in those certain things.
And there's always good to keep up. You don't let the house, and when you don't paint the house for a while, it looks bad.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You need
Especially when your neighbors are painting their houses.
Yeah, you need to keep the grass cut and the hedges trimmed and stuff like that. A few more hits on the Firehouse Subs text line that relate to this. Up and down, I guess you got.
Oh, yeah. I picked one for both sides here. And Dan in Somerton is maybe not a big fan of the hire. He says no to retirement hires. Reference the end of Holtz and Spurrier. Neither ended well.
Okay.
I would say they had some pretty good highs.
Yeah.
Which is why you make the hire.
I mean, Lou Holtz gets you to 2 back-to-back New Year's Day bowl games, first 2 in school history, and you beat mighty Ohio State in each of them. Lou didn't want to be here anymore. And it's not like he hated it. His wife was sick. He was away from her a lot. He told Mike McGee he wanted to leave. Mike McGee basically said, I can't have you leave now. You just won back-to-back games, bowl games like that. But it slid. But, and then with Steve, what happened in 2015, that team, I don't know, it started in 14. They just couldn't play defense anymore. It's odd. I mean, the 2014 team, again, what Steve and Sean and GA were putting together was literally record-setting at the time from an offensive standpoint. And they still had some pretty good offensive talent in 15, but it just the defense, it reminded me of the end of the Brad Scott era. It's like, y'all do know you're supposed to tackle the other guy, right? Like it got embarrassingly bad.
The rules of football didn't change.
But I mean, what's the guy who hit us? What was the name?
Dan and Summer.
Dan. I mean, Dan. Look, if you don't like it, you don't like it. But I mean, if you only focus on how they ended, okay. But what about the highs? I mean, Steve Spurrier turned this thing into a top 5 football program. I wish you could have sustained it. You didn't, and that's something to learn from. But with baseball, I think it's different. If Paul Mainieri can elevate this thing back to, a trip to Omaha in the next 5 years, and that's certainly going to be amongst the goals, then I think you can be in a position where, unlike football, it doesn't have to trail off again before you pick it back up. And again, this program's not destitute right now. This is not the program that Steve took over from Lou. And it's not the program, certainly, that Lou took over from Brad. You're going to the tournament. You need to advance in the tournament. Mm-hmm. That's why you fired the coach, because you weren't advancing in the tournament. You're closer than you were with those 2 hires.
You hired a coach who has a great track record of advancement.
Yeah.
And I'll go to what I said earlier in the hour. If you get to Omaha once with him as your head coach, it is worth it because you are so thirsty to get back and you need that momentum of a College World Series trip in the worst way in your program right now. Even if he's only here 5 years, because he's, at his age, 5 years will put him at Pete Carroll's age when Pete Carroll retired from the NFL. So it's a fair stretch, right, to say that you'll be here for 5 years. If you get to Omaha once and make a run, it's worth it.
If he's got the energy that Pete Carroll does at that age, then I'm here for it, man, because Pete Carroll is like 72 going on 40.
Right, yeah. Almost surprised Pete Carroll retired because there was no signs of slowing down.
Yeah. So,
it's in great shape.
Yeah. All right, more on this tomorrow throughout the day, and a board meeting tomorrow at 4 while we're on the air. So we'll have as much as possible. Until then, for Elijah Campbell, I'm Jay Phillips. Enjoy the rest of the Monday. We'll see you. Homeowners, love where you are. You and the family, very happy in your neighborhood. Been there for a while, but it's time for improvements. And you say, oh, golly, that could get expensive. Well, if you can join up with Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union, you'd be able to take advantage of lower rates and fewer fees when it comes to securing a home equity line of credit. Here's the deal. You apply, you're accepted. You get a 10-year draw period. Maybe right now you just need to, upgrade the kitchen a little bit. But later, maybe add on a extra bedroom, fix up the kids' bathroom so they don't fight each other over, shower time and everything else. Maybe a little place for you to get away from the kids for a bit. Whatever the needs, unlock that home, access it over a 10-year draw period, and you're saving a lot of money through the course of it all. Apply today at palmettocitizens.org or any of their 14 convenient Midlands locations. Lower closing costs, lower application fees. Hey, it's all worth it at Palmetto Citizens.